Yo guys, Professor Theo here on Common Sense. Today I'm gonna tell you how I'll be cutting this year. It's getting closer. It's around 1.5 months left now until I start my cut, and I also have plans on doing a more general fat loss video again as well, because it's quite different if you're someone like me that I'm quite in control of what I eat, having done all the fasting I have that we're gonna get into in a minute, but also been doing this natural bodybuilding lifestyle, doing cycles of bulking and cutting successfully many times now. I pretty much could pick many different ways to cut and just execute it and get it done right. While if you're someone that's always been overweight or been struggling with being overweight for a long time, having problems losing weight, it's more of a behavioral change kind of thing. It's not just about picking a strategy and going with it. You might have to experiment, find your way, figure yourself out a little bit why it's been so difficult for you, gradually changing your behaviors until you're just not an overweight person anymore. Also, since what I do is not really, I pretty much almost never prescribe my exact cutting regime to anyone, so it can be quite interesting just to talk about exactly how I'll be doing it. But please guys, if you have any questions about fat loss in general, or as how it relates to the lifestyle of natural bodybuilding, please let me know in the comments. And as always guys, the more precise, the more exact you can be, the more details you can provide in your question, the better. Alright, so yes, like I've told you, the most unconventional thing about me when it comes to, well, fitness and you know, lifestyle in general is the prolonged fasting that I do, especially as a natural bodybuilder, right? And there are many different ways to implement it, and I would do it differently for different people in different circumstances. But for me, where I'm at right now, it's usually, I don't want to use the fast as the main thing that I rely on to create the caloric deficit, meaning that I won't be doing like chaining fast, doing back-to-back fast, or like some kind of weekly fast, but I like fasting to be part of the process. So for a few times now, when I've started my cut, I've started with a 5-day fast that would typically be a saltwater fast. Not gonna go into the fasting too much in detail because I have single Professor lectures on fasting overall, so you can go to the Professor Theo playlist and look at the fasting videos if you want more details about that. But this year I wanted to try something, well, I have done dry fasts before, but I wanted to actually have a dry fast, at least as part of my 5-day fast that will kick off my cut. And you know, people often ask like, well, why a dry fast, you know? You gotta realize that someone like me, many things that I do for the sake of doing them. You know, there's not always this like grand explanation. I can often come up, give you some reasons why it might be good, you know, but many times it's like, first and foremost, the reason I do something is because I want to do that thing. It's like, you know, oh, why do you do front squats more than back squats? Well, I like them. I want to do them. It's not that I think they're better for building legs, you know, I just enjoy front squatting. It's a beastly movement. I feel cool. I feel good doing front squats. A little bit the same with a dry fast, that it's just a challenging thing, you know, to not even just refrain from eating for a few days, but even drinking water. And I'm just not the huge expert on a thing like that. There are many people that are very into dry fasting, and there are some unique benefits associated with dry fasting. Of course, it's an intense stressor on the body. You gotta be careful, like ask your doctor, you know, I'm not giving you medical advice or telling you to do this here. But for me, actually, having gone through a bulk like this, like I'm always at a point like just longing for when I get to cut and fast specifically, just like completely let go of eating so much all the time. And I also know that even a regular saltwater fast, it will just have it's a big aspect for me is a spiritual effect. It will just it's hard to even explain, you know. It will just put you in an altered kind of state, and when you've been eating for so long, like the food, all the eating, the extra energy you've been taking is almost like weighing you down, and I just look forward to feeling light like that. And just, you know, the kick of doing something more extreme like that, like a dry fast, I think, like I'm looking forward to it. Like it's gonna be, dry fasting is more difficult for me for sure than saltwater fast, but I'm still looking forward to the way I'm pretty sure it's gonna make me feel. And I'll just tell you from experience, I have done 3-day dry fasts before. You do lose more weight. Like Obviously, during the fast, when you're not drinking water, like it's an inflated number because you lose a lot of water that you're gonna retain or gain back when you start drinking and eating again. But I've seen that even after refeeding, you do lose more fat from a dry fast. And the theory that I've heard that that there's not a lot of science on all of this. This is all mostly based on my experience, right? But the theory that I've heard is that a fat cell, it's in part made up of water, and so when you dehydrate yourself like that, the body will just burn through fat to get access to that metabolic water, which does make sense, right? But I'm not saying that this is the truth. That's just a theory, but definitely what I've seen is that you just lose more weight from a dry fast. So I think in 3 days is what I've done before, kind of no problems. Like, it's challenging, but it doesn't take too long to get back to. I know it seems crazy to someone that never did it, but I've done it quite a few times now. It's not that bad in the end, but I'm leaving open that I could push it longer than 3 days, but at least 3 days of the 5-day. But I might start on the 4th day to, replenish on salt water already then, but we'll see. We'll see. If I feel good, I might just go for a PB. I've never gone longer than 3 days on a dry fast. But so I will start it like that. And then the diet changes that I will do is really that I'll go revert to 3 meals. Now, I'm sort of eating 3 meals on some days with extra pretty much stuff like this, just because if you see this protein bar, by the way, this is not that it kind of markets itself as being like a healthy protein bar. It isn't necessarily, But 1 meal for me has almost been like 4 of these bars, like 800 easy calories. Sometimes it depends on the day a little bit. I might be eating out an extra meal or something. I'm just relying a bit more on snacking, like drinking more just juice and stuff, Like the base structure in my diet has been the same for a long time, like 3 meals. But when I bulk, there might be a 4th one and just more snacking around these 3 meals. But now it will be whole foods only. And I always, like even when bulking, I focus on eating the eggs and meat and potatoes, rice, vegetables, fruits, honey, But someone like me, I have such a high metabolism that I kind of rely on, something like these protein bars that I don't think are ideal. It's just like to make it easier to get into a surplus. And I'm kind of looking forward to like not having to eat that kind of shit anymore and just focusing on, the whole foods that I kind of listed there, right? I do have a Fitness Diet 101 video, by the way. I can link in the description when I talk a bit about my diet strategy overall. But yeah, there will be fewer carbs. That's kind of the way my 3 staple meals are always like eggs in the morning, some kind of meat with rice or potatoes, second meal, and then the protein yogurt that I do. These are like the staple meals that I will switch one out here and there, but that's like on many days, that's literally what I'll eat, right? But how I kind of adjust the size of these, say I put protein focus, because the protein is what we always want to keep high. It's just that when you eat more overall, when you're bulking, it kind of, if you focus on the right foods, it's like you're not going to have to think about it. Also, a calorie surplus is kind of protein sparing. So it's actually more important to focus on the protein when you're cutting. But it will mainly be the eggs, for instance. Right now, I always have the eggs with honey, but right now, always with rice too, for the calories, right? But I'll pretty much just remove the rice there. On my second meal, where I would right now, because it's easier to eat more carbs than rice and meat, I will switch the rice to potatoes. And that's when if I keep reducing the food, that's where I kind of, the amount of potatoes there is what I'm gonna kind of it's gonna be mostly there. And then the protein yogurt that I do with Greek yogurt right now, I'm gonna switch it so I use mostly kefir for it, like a little click of Greek yogurt to mix with honey, but then kefir because it's leaner. And I'll say here that, I used to count calories. I have many clients that work with me count calories, but at this point, I kind of to me, calorie counting is a great tool, but no one is supposed to have to do that forever, At a point, you should kind of know just your nutritional needs more from amounts of foods, and you think more in terms of, instead of calories, you're going to think more in terms of more or less food, right? But someone like me, like what I want to come to here is that there's some information going about that you shouldn't have too big of a deficit because you might lose muscle, and I'm just not afraid of losing muscle at all. I've done these long fasts, never saw that I lost muscle. I've done pretty steep deficits, never saw that I lose muscle. So, depending on who you are, for someone it might make sense to start and gradually reduce food. For me, it's like I'm gonna go straight into such a big deficit that will pretty much do it for the entirety, the rest of the cut. But if anything, it's that middle meal that I might reduce the amount of carbs I have with the meat. But always protein focus, right? Like I'd like someone like me, I'd like to get like 200 grams of protein per day. That's the most important part. But you see that I like to do it this way, since I have that kind of control anyway. Just make the deficit so obviously big that I'm gonna land with this somewhere between 2,000 and 2,500 calories, which is a pretty steep deficit for someone like myself. I like to just do it that way, so I have to worry, is the deficit big enough for me to lose weight? It's like, no, it definitely is, and you're not gonna have to do it for all that long anyway, right? Training changes. So when you're cutting, people think they should change their training in some kind of big way. You don't really. There's nothing like this, like, do higher reps to burn more fat or something. Just don't even worry about that. You're pretty much going to do it the same. The only really changes that I do is I'm going to do slightly less volume. Just not... the recovery will take a hit a little bit, right, when you're eating less. So, just removing, kind of how I talked about in a video recently, how I would auto-regulate on a day when I'm like depleted from having slept a little, but more like always now when you're cutting, like maybe reduce from 3 sets to 2 on a few exercises, maybe cut out an exercise completely. And what I will do is, I know kind of what exercises I cannot expect to make. You can make some progress while you're cutting with certain exercises, but I know, for instance, that a squat, there's just no way that I'm gonna keep, as I'm losing weight, gonna keep getting stronger in the squat. I'm just not, So I might as well do less of the squats. I've been doing a 5x5 on a front squat for a long time now. So, because I know that I'm not gonna be able to make gains there anyway, and it's a very fatiguing kind of exercise, like just reduce the volume there, while and also on pushes, for instance, I do not, like a dumbbell press, barbell bench press, I do not expect to keep getting stronger as I'm cutting, so I might just do less volume on those kinds of exercises and kind of focus where I know, like pulling exercises, historically I've been able to squeeze some progress out, might still opt for less fatiguing exercises, like I don't know what example to take now, but let's say, just because I'm not coming up with something, but let's say I have done a kind of bent over barbell row for a while, I might change that to a chest supported variation because, I'm gonna give the lower back a break. Just do exercises, I'm a little nicer to myself with exercise selection while I'm cutting, because it's gonna get tougher to train. Just removing resistance by choosing options that aren't just as centrally fatiguing like that. And then on, like, for instance, arms, I'm definitely going to push arms because it's more isolated exercises. I expect myself to be able to make more progress on an exercise like that. But so you see, there's not many differences. It's like a little bit less volume, just pick some options that are a bit less fatiguing, right? When it comes to cardio, I'm not someone that really done much direct cardio training during these years. For many, like, it's a side note, but for kind of health reasons, if you train with weights frequently, you do all these big movements that are gonna elevate your pulse anyway. Like, for health reasons, you don't really have to do more cardio. It would be for actual performance when it comes to, any cardiovascular activity. You have to be specific and train it, but I actually have quite good cardio if I go out and test it, if I go for a spontaneous run or something. But, so first of all, I will just do more steps. I'll just walk more. Right now, when I'm bulking and it's winter, I will get fewer steps, like pretty much automatically. But I also let myself get away with that, if you see what I mean. Now I will just choose walking as a means of transportation. Maybe not always take the fastest route, just to get in all over the day, more steps like that. And I'm just gonna go on more random walks in the middle of the day. Just go out. If I go record a video outside, I'll go a bit deeper into the forest to record a video. So in that entire when I go do that, I'm gonna get in more steps overall, and then does it fit? But and movement, pretty much that, because when it comes, that's what you gotta realize, that if you like running or cycling or whatever, great. Of course that's good for losing weight, but when it comes to burning calories, you just have to move more. Moving more means burning more calories. So, for instance, like some of you will have seen, I do these mace swings. It's not the activity that burns the most, but doing more of that instead of sitting on your ass will burn more. You see, it's a good thing to think about, that you don't always have to do this extra, like, intense kind of activity, or that gives you sweat. Like I say, great if you want to, but I'm just saying you don't really have to. As long as you move more in general, you're going to be using more energy. But then, so a new thing I just put here that I've been curious about doing, because I think I am still someone that specializes. I try to get little activities in around like hypertrophy training, but it's still something I kind of specialize in. So it always makes sense that whatever other activity you do feeds into that as much as possible. So something I'm a little curious about trying is doing as a sort of cardio workout, kind of structuring, let's say 3 exercises at a time that you perform in a circle with some kind of moderate light weight. That you're moving a lot of weight is not the point. It's just that you're still working against resistance as a hypertrophy trainer, right? You're just doing it at a higher tempo and not to failure now. It's just that you're going to be moving around through this exercise, getting a sweat and getting elevated heart rate, but it's an activity that's kind of close to, it's related to your weight training. And honestly, I think it's great active recovery too. If you do different squat, press, pulling patterns at just a high tempo, like just pumping around blood without fatiguing, the muscles or joints all that much more. Blood flow is pretty much the best thing for recovery outside of like eating and sleeping well, right? But just pumping those nutrients into the muscle. So that's something I might do. Let's say I'm going to do overall more steps and movement, but let's say it's a bad day, it's a rainy day. Maybe on a day like that, I'll go get in like a little 30-45 minute session of something like that. Okay. Possibly a last fast, quite likely actually, that when I feel like I'm getting there, I'm pretty much done, just to like get to that. It's a little bit, honestly, when you're someone that works on social media, that when you want to post like, here's the cut result, like do that last fast to just get down a bit lower than I will even stay, and take the cool, like the cut is done. I never take pictures of myself like this, right? But, that last fast to just get down to really, really solidify that fat loss. And from there, I'll consider myself done. And I estimate, so for me, the way I do things now, this should take around 6 weeks. I guess I will weigh like 92 kilos when I start this fast. I would guess that the lowest number I see after the last fast, that when I refed and all, not at the end of the fast, will be like just below 85, between 84 and 85, and as I start eating a bit more, it's going to be somewhere between 85 and 86, and then I'm going to be quite ripped, guys. Someone asked me, because I just put on a community post I did, like, why do you have to cut? You're already ripped or something. Not really. I know in the common person's eyes, and when I'm like pumped, standing in gym lighting, you're gonna have quite a bit of definition, but I have high standards for myself. I just like being fucking lean, But yeah, this is the beautiful thing. The last words I'll say is that, first of all, when you put on a bit more muscle mass, it's like you're gonna look better, even carrying a bit more body fat, because there's just some areas that won't be as fat, right? But also getting down to what is really, really lean in most people's eyes. You just don't have to giga deplete yourself, if you see what I mean. It's different getting down to let's say 10% body fat. It's a big difference if those last few percentages there, if you're going to be someone that competes in bodybuilding. So I think this kind of thing will always work for me, to be really, really, really lean, But if I were to ever compete in bodybuilding, then I'd have to, after this point, I'd have to do something very, very differently, reduce food even more, And I'll say that as a last thing, that people often ask me if I want to compete, and honestly, that side of bodybuilding has just never spoken to me. I like the building a physique and cutting and bulking, absolutely, but that the kind of standing on a stage and posing, that never really spoke to me. Yeah, I've never been drawn into this for that sake, but I've always known that it's like, yeah, doing it as a one-off challenge, because I like challenges, it looks like the dry fast, right? Yeah, I'd like to do it at some point. It would, of course, be a good learning experience. It would be good content, right? But I've just been waiting for a moment when I think it's right. And honestly, I don't quite know how my life will turn out this year. Some things are up for grabs a little bit, but especially if I find myself still living here in Stockholm for the entirety of this year, there are some good bodybuilding competitions in like December. So this might be the year when I do my first competition. It would natural, obviously, and I'm all but sure that it will be like a one-off thing, that I won't like want to do it more. But yeah, that will be interesting to see. I don't even know what the lowest body fat I've ever been at, but let's put it this way. Of course, it's challenging, especially towards the end of a cut, but I've never felt like I have to go into some kind of like, it's so extreme what I'm doing, and going like beyond that. A competition would, of course, be good motivation to try something like that, so it would be a cool experience. But yeah, guys, that's everything that goes into my cutting plan. Honestly, I can't wait for it to get there. It's like, if you wonder why I don't start sooner when I say that, it's just that the way I periodize my training now, there is some benefit to carrying a bit more fat, especially the squats and presses, those kinds of exercises. It's just easier for me to make gains when I carry more fat. So when I'm here, it's like I want to milk everything out of this. But yeah, can't wait. It's going to be like right after Easter that I'm start cutting. So yeah, well, like I said, if you have any questions at all about fat loss and cutting, please let me know in the comments. Please like the video. All comments and likes help support the channel, helps more people find their way here, so it's very much appreciated. I do holistic bodybuilding coaching, getting jacked and stacked mentally, physically, spiritually, working on ourselves, body, mind and soul, becoming that person, just like I think I said at the start, becoming that person that isn't overweight. It's not just about an external result, it's about the person that you are. So if you're interested, you can send me a DM on Instagram or email me. It's all in the description below. I'll get back to you, tell you about my different programs. You can pick up my training book, everything training, philosophy, mindset related that you need in order to become a self-reliant, jacked and stacked individual. Please subscribe for more content about fitness, fast losing weight, building muscle, self-improvement, stoicism, mental health, philosophy, spirituality, mindset. It is a mindset, guys. In this case, I just want to say that I fucking love being shredded. I kind of hate when I have to bulk and lose the shreds. Looking forward to it. Peace.